The police had their prime suspect. The motive was clear. The alibi didn't add up. But suspicion is not proof. And he walked free. This right here is the baffling, just absolutely heartbreaking disappearance of Chhori Maiya Maharjan. In this explainer, we're unpacking a really dark, unsettling story that proves having a suspect is one thing, but actually proving a crime, well, that's an entirely different battle. And for her family, this isn't just some abstract legal mystery. It is a constant, painful, completely unanswered question.
Chapter 1: The Last Ordinary Day. The timeline of Chhori Maiya Maharjan's last known movements.
To truly grasp how this investigation completely unraveled, we have to look at the terrifying velocity of this case. At 0 hours, right here in the bustling streets of Kathmandu, she's just living her normal, everyday life. But then, just a few short hours later, she suddenly vanishes without a trace. And in under 24 hours, the whole situation escalates into a full-blown crisis with a formal missing persons report. It was this rapid, terrifying escalation that triggered a desperate investigation, one that honestly almost immediately locked on to a single target.
Chapter 2: Prime Suspect. Inconsistent Alibi. Why police zeroed in on immediately. You know, in high-stakes investigations like this, police rarely keep their scope broad for very long. Pretty quickly, they had a suspect who, at least on paper, was a perfect profile. They were close to the victim and had a clear, undeniable motive to cause harm. But the moment they brought this suspect in and started asking the hard questions, the narrative totally crumbled. I mean, the alibi was incredibly shaky, it was riddled with glaring inconsistencies, and it just completely fell apart under interrogation.
But then investigators hit a massive wall. The detectives had this incredibly powerful hunch. They felt it in their bones that they had their person. But here's the reality. Hunches do not secure convictions. Suspicion, no matter how strong it is, just doesn't equal guilt in a courtroom. They needed hard, undeniable, irrefutable proof to bridge that massive gap between knowing someone is guilty and actually proving it to a judge. Chapter 3: The Cascade of Failures. Forensic dead ends and conflicting testimonies. The forward momentum of the entire investigation basically died at a staggering number: 0. Despite intense, exhaustive efforts, investigators found exactly 0 pieces of physical evidence. No body was ever recovered, no murder weapon, no DNA, no blood, no fibers. There was literally nothing forensically tying their prime suspect to the disappearance.
And it wasn't just a lack of a forensic trail. It was a complete cascade of investigative failures. The human evidence completely failed them too. Key witnesses actually began contradicting each other, providing these entirely different accounts that completely ruined the established timeline. So think about it, without physical evidence, or even a reliable timeline, police couldn't even definitively identify the crime scene. It was like trying to build a giant puzzle, but with completely mismatched pieces.
Chapter 4: Suspicion versus Proof. The Paradox. Circumstantial evidence collides with reasonable doubt.
Every single instinct that pointed to guilt was totally undermined by a lack of proof, creating this impossible legal standoff. On one side, you have strong suspicion of a prime suspect whose story just didn't hold water. But on the other side, an absolute wall of reasonable doubt caused by the complete absence of physical evidence. They had a suspect they legally couldn't charge, and a mountain of doubt they just couldn't climb over.
Ultimately, this case rested entirely on circumstantial evidence. And if you're not familiar, circumstantial evidence is basically a collection of facts that suggest something happened, but it requires a judge or a jury to connect the dots themselves, without a definitive smoking gun. Because there was no direct proof here, the defense could so easily point to that massive void of physical evidence. And that void created just enough reasonable doubt to stop any potential conviction completely in its tracks.
Chapter 5: Final Tally. No Justice. The heartbreaking toll on the family. So where does that leave us? All of these tangled threads of suspicion, all of the intense interrogations, the investigative theories, they ultimately led nowhere. We have a victim who is presumed dead, a prime suspect who walks completely free, a pile of circumstantial evidence leading absolutely nowhere. But the true tragedy here isn't just an unsolved case file collecting dust on a desk. It's the complete and total lack of closure for the family of Chhori Maiya Maharjan. They are left grieving in the dark, still desperately waiting for answers that, heartbreakingly, may never come.
The legal hurdles in this case are staggering, and the lack of closure for the family is heart-wrenching. What do you think is the biggest barrier to justice? The missing physical evidence or the conflicting testimonies? Drop your theory below.